Understanding Patrick's fake treasure hunt clue, and I promise it's more complex than you think. Welcome to National Treasure University, where we explain how National Treasure did, in fact, get things right. Near the end of National Treasure, Patrick Gates explains to his son Ben that they need to maintain the status quo with villain Ian, because there will come a point at which Ian doesn't need them anymore. That prediction comes true moments later when Ian threatens to kill the treasure protectors if they don't give him the next treasure hunt clue. Enter Patrick's famous fake clue, where he points to a lantern in the cavern and says that it's a reference to the single lantern that guided Paul Revere on his midnight ride, something that's immediately supposed to connote fake clue, since the British arrived by a water based route that evening, and therefore Paul Revere was signaled by two lanterns, something that Abigail immediately picks up on and realizes something fishy is afoot. But interestingly, the lantern reference isn't the only historical inaccuracy in Patrick's fake clue, because he says the man who hung the lantern was Thomas Newton. Well, meet Robert Newman, the most famous sexton in Old North Church's history, because it was he, alongside John Pulling, that hung the lanterns in the steeple that evening. So, who is Patrick talking about in his clue? Meet Thomas Newton, a British bishop and religious scholar during the Revolutionary War era. So, why did Patrick swap Newman and Newton's names? Well, presumably, Patrick realized that the recipient of his fake clue, Ian, is not a historical expert, but two people in that room with him, Ben and Abigail, are. Therefore, Ben and Abigail probably know that Thomas Newton's most famous work is an annotated copy of John Milton's Paradise Lost, a biblical story about how Adam and Eve were tempted by Satan and subsequently expelled from the Garden of Eden. Therefore, by referencing Thomas Newton in this case, Patrick could actually be signaling to his allies Ben and Abigail that he's going to use the change in status quo in their favor. In fact, he will use his fake clue to expel Ian from their version of the Garden of Eden. In other words, the path to the Templar treasure. Thank you for coming to my treasure talk.